standings and C3 at the top. Minnesota, 63 games played. Each of these games in the past we have discussed in earlier videos talking about guys in the country would be absolutely terrible. And just that idea alone is enough to make you understand, okay, there's a reason thrown around the most out of all the other teams the past few days, so it is indeed a pretty interesting discussion, and it's one that I do think is a lot more like around on the Flyers past the trade deadline and going to UFA status and not doing anything for this team. Everybody talks about how the Flyers wasted his career and the pride of his career and all that, but that may be true. It seems more like a Claude Giroux kind of thing to actually get traded and give this team assets rather than just up and away leave. And so with the Flyers being as bad as they are and then trying to go out there and get as much as they're trying to get for guys like Martin Jones and everything, it does make sense that this would fall into place this way. And so, if you're a Colorado Avalanche fan, let me know in the comments, what is it that you would like to give up for Claude Giroux in the trade? We already discussed about one hypothetical trade package that included the likes of Sampo Ranta, Justin Barron, Tyson Jost, a few guys that it's been reported that the Flyers are very much interested in. But of course, if you're a Flyers fan, let me know in the comments if you think this kind of trade package is acceptable. Now, on to the Wild and on to the Blues. We haven't talked about your teams yet, so let's go ahead and get this out of the way. Claude Giroux would be a very good addition to both of these teams as well, and I don't really think it's difficult to understand why. For the St. Louis Blues, this team has Brady Shed, Ryan O'Reilly, Jordan Kyrou, Buchnevich, Thomas, and Tarasenko in their top six. Saad, Barbashev, and Perron round out that top nine. Having a guy like Claude Giroux inserted into this lineup, he doesn't need to tell you, would be pretty great. Now, I personally am not really too familiar with the Blues' lines and their chemistry and everything to actually figure out where Giroux could fit on this team. Do you move Barbashev out of the top nine and you put Giroux on your third line, or do you shift Thomas to the wing or whatever? Like, do you really want to put any of Shed, O'Reilly, Kyrou, Buchnevich, Thomas, or Tarasenko onto your third line and out of the top six? Because that's a pretty good top six if you do ask me. You're probably going to have to find somewhere to put Claude Giroux, and it's going to be a pretty difficult task. But when it comes to the Minnesota Wild, hey, this is a team that has Frederick Gaudreau as their current second-line center, alongside of Kevin Fiala and Matt Boldy. Sure, they do have some injuries. Needstad is out, so there's another forward there. But this team so far, Kaprizov, Hartman, Zuccarello, Fiala, X, and Boldy, sounds like prime material for where a Claude Giroux could go. Have him on that second line with Kevin Fiala. Play him alongside that Matt Boldy that just got a hat trick the other night. I didn't miss that, by the way. Very good to see out of Boldy. And so I do think there's a lot more of a well-defined spot on the Wild compared to the Blues, where Claude Giroux could just come in and fit right easily. Again, no disrespect to Frederick Gaudreau, but that's kind of how I see things if I were to. For this team. So you can let me know in the comments if you're a Wild fan what you think your team should do if Giroux gets acquired. But the biggest discussion of all lies in the trade return. Of course, Colorado, Jost, Ranta, Perron, that's a pretty good package for one player that is essentially just a rental. He happens to be one of the better rentals to enter the market over the past 2 years, though. If this is sort of, let's say, not even a price, but like a ballpark estimate, because those three, Ranta, Perron, and Jost, are only really labeled as players the Flyers are interested in, let's kind of try to brainstorm what a Philadelphia Flyers team could want out of these other teams. So, St. Louis, you do have yourself some pretty good roster forwards, as you like everybody you've got. Let's say, for the sake of argument, Jost is equivalent to Ivan Barbashev. You have Justin Barron, who is equivalent to, I don't know, a really good defense prospect that the Blues have. Scott Perunovic, I guess he kind of counts, really good in the NCAA, suiting up for the Blues already. I guess he's sort of in that conversation, right? And then for a forward, you could maybe say, okay, Zachary Bolduc is over there. You also have Jake Neighbors, a few really good, valuable forward prospects, both Vikings as well. And so, that might be sort of the territory if we think about a Bolduc, a Perunovic, and another roster player like Barbashev. What do you think about that, St. Louis Blues fans? I know it's a little bit of a difficult pill to swallow because it's a big package, but it is sort of akin to what we were talking about when it comes to the Colorado Avalanche. As to the Minnesota Wild, they do have a ton of really good players also at their disposal when it comes to forwards. Hey, you do have that Frederick Gaudreau who is playing pretty all right. You do have Nick Bjugstad, who is currently injured. But when it comes to defense prospects, the ones that come to my mind are Caleb Addison. You also have Damon Hunt, Ryan O'Rourke, not to mention Carson Lambos, who's probably a lot more akin to the caliber of a Justin Barron from Colorado, because they're both 20-plus first-round picks. So, for the sake of argument, for Minnesota, let's propose the idea that it's Nick Bjugstad, maybe a Carson Lambos, and then another forward prospect. So maybe somebody like an Adam Beckman, for the sake of argument. I know a lot of Wild fans are kind of cringed in their seats upon hearing that. But you've got to pay a price to get somebody as good as a Claude Giroux, even if he is a rental. And I guess you could go out there and make the debate that Claude Giroux is a lot more than just a regular rental, even though he is just a regular rental. It's Claude Giroux. Like, come on. This is one of the most decorated players of the entire 2010s. One of the most well-rounded and offensively sound guys. One of the most underrated players throughout the past decade and a half, pretty much. And so, for Claude Giroux, I could totally understand that the price gets up to that high of an amount, because even though he is a rental, as I said, it's Claude Giroux. So, if you're a Colorado Avalanche fan, a St. Louis Blues fan, or a Minnesota Wild fan, want me to comment on your thoughts about these trade proposals that I've kind of brought up, what the price could be for a Claude Giroux, and why you would want or not want to go after this player. These are your team. So, there is a pretty good foundation of success that you have here, I guess. And if you're a Philadelphia Flyers fan, let me know in the comments as well. What kind of package out of the three that we have discussed would you prefer the most? Something like it's
everybody's picked for the team that they think could go on a run and catch a playoff spot. I don't think in reality it happens. Right now they're 7 points behind Boston. They play 4 more games. They have to put up in order to catch Boston. It's pretty daunting. They want Boston to fall apart. They need Washington to fall apart. But again, you're 10 on a team ahead of you falling apart as well. And I don't think there's any pressure on the guys to make any decisions. Although it's very state cap friendly. With the amount of money that's currently on the IR, they would have a deadline cap space of $54,180,720. That takes it down a little bit. I think that Eisenman is going to be trying to bring in other assets to the deadline. They're doing very well for the future, but they didn't seem to need to put in all of their draft picks for upcoming drafts, because I think they've done a pretty good job of restocking the coverage in the prospects, and they're one of the better guys in the league. We currently have $9.3 million in IR players for the year. And they've got some good upcoming talent. Jonathan Berman, one of them, and forward. Italian on the blue process. Again, which means the future. We're going there. Peter Box, West could end up being a pretty good deal for them. Edmonton, all the reports on Edmonton this year that have some good development. But they were all the support for this draft. Much like Fires, with players who, was greatly thought of by some of the scouts who thought was the potential number one, and then we have to slide down to the third book, Ryan will take Snyder, Ryan will take Edmonton. And in both cases, there are some who would look and say, both of these are the good other guys who are the one, well, it's a great difference. They're saying that we're going to Snyder now, and I'm going to go with Edmonton. Then there's Bollinger. Bollinger, of course, is drafted 32nd overall. So it's still a relatively high draft pick. The blue liners, another one we're always looking to see at the NHL level. I think they were Starboard. Starboard is 6 foot 6, 208 pounds. Forward, he's kind of part of the other So these one that I'm really looking for is the NHL level. So Chicago, the prospect potential that once you get there, is going to be one of those big, strong, bottom six guys. I guess the star play mindset is not okay. So you stand in front of the goal, and they can't see anything. Big players. So we look at the lineup, and again, these lines aren't set in stone or anything. This is just the lineups that I got from Cap Friendly. I do, where I get the lines from. And again, I'm doing this different once that's done and he's getting below the playoff line. They've got the year as a restricted free agent this coming summer. He's on first line last night. 46 games, 5 goals, 9 assists, 14 points. It's been a struggle for him. And I don't know how much longer it's going to go for him before he says, well, this isn't really working, and we look at something else, whether it's moving to the end or finding somebody else to take his spot in the lineup. Dylan Larkin, unrestricted free agent in 2023, so they do have some cap issues next offseason, not right now and not for a while, but those are going to show up as they start to get better. Larkin, 43 games, 24 goals, 20 assists, 46 points, it's been a great year for him. You have Raymond, who's a restricted free agent in 2024, 48 games, 12 goals, 25 assists, 37 points. He's fallen off from where he started the season, but that happens with most rookies. You'll have that rookie wall when they get it. And then some of them come out the other side, and they start scoring again, and that could absolutely happen to Raymond. You got Fabry, who just signed an extension, but he signed through 2025. 46 games, 13 goals, 11 assists, 24 points. It's nice to see him healthy, and it's nice to see him scoring up on his 20-goal pace. That's what St. Louis envisioned for him. They made the trade in part because he just wasn't able to stay in the lineup on top of them not really having a spot for him. Then you got Kid Suter, a very low signing in the past offseason. 48 games, 11 goals, 2024. Ideally, I think at number 2 center, you would have somebody else there. You would bump him down. Rasmussen probably as a 4th line center, and then being Milano in the wing. But Suter's providing him with some solid offense too. For 3 scored 40 games, 22 goals, 41 points. And then he's 53 in 2023. Same as Suter and Larkin. So, yeah, Larkin is a reason to be looking for some good money. For Judy to be looking for excellent money, if you put together a 35 goal season, that's good, maybe 40 goal season, and then it's going to happen. Nemesnikov, 4 games, 13 goals, 10 assists, 20 points. And unrestricted free agent this summer, and this is what the question is again. If you are the guy, you get no 7 points back to Boston, we're in a position where we're probably not going to make the playoffs. Let me call right now and ask the asking price for Nemesnikov. Are you listening, or are you looking at the 13 goals before you get to replace that for that player? Who's going to produce like that? Because for Nemesnikov, it's been a productive season, and he is something that he is calling about. Daniel Rasmussen, 46 games, 5 goals, 10 assists, 50 points, 53 in 2024. Dolphins sends the Rasmussen, 47 games, 4 goals, 6 assists, 10 points. He's another pretty good next year, 2023. Somebody called it next year. What's the term we're learning? But I don't think that's a big difference there. So you've got the fifth starter. You've got Rasmussen, 38 games, 4 goals, 2 assists, 6 points. So the restricted free agent next year, 2023. Jamel Smith was the 1 game playing for Detroit, but he has an assist, and he's another restricted free agent next year. So we shall see how this works, and at the end of the whole thing in the lineup, at the same time, we'll see. Milano, 13 games, 4 goals, 3 assists, 7 points. And then he's a restricted free agent as we said next year, 2023. Sam Gagner, 48 games, 4 goals, 12 assists, 15 points. His contract is up this summer. Might be some records for somebody who's in, but in fact, maybe he can find a way to pack the Tom Gagner. It's not room to hold on to the cap. So if they're not asking what money they have, you can tell them don't worry about it, we'll retain on either of them, both of those contracts. So, Nemesnikov and Gagner should be good depth for somebody else to add money to young prospects and others that or the return numbers that they make that move. Then you get the blue line. The guys are 37 games, even under 53 this summer. Kreider, 48 games, 4 goals, 27 assists, 31 points, with a 53 games, 124. Are you thinking he's untouchable? Probably, right? He has a very good chance of ending up winning the call this, not that it's the end of the world if he doesn't, because what is probably not going to be better than 35. Charles, 41 games, 1 goal, 5 assists, 6 points, he's another 53 this summer, much like the Nemesnikov, much like somebody who is going to be with him, and we call that the deadline. David McLeod, he's another 53 this summer, 44 games, 1 goal, 11 assists, 12 points. And good, that is the best thing. And so we'll see that on Red Wings. Possibly 26 games, 1 goal, 4 games, 5 points, 2 points, 53, and Lindstrom. They thought Lindstrom 38 games, -6 for him. Getting close to that first goal, it's going to happen at some point too. I believe it. And yeah, he's a restricted free next year. I'm a huge fan of Lindstrom. As much as people love Snyder, I think Lindstrom has potential to be one of the better shutdown sets in the league. And then in net, you have 3 goals for Benny Ford, 153. First, the Delta this 4-2-5. Now you can take so this summer, 210 for save percentage for again, but it's a smaller zone. Great odds are great. They have bigger than the minors, he's bigger, he's already played a couple games this year.
What I believe in can't be contained. I believe with the right tools, we can turn what we love into what we do. We all of who you are.
The backup after the deadline, I think there's 2 players, but somebody else there. So, for Detroit, I think being a seller at the deadline shouldn't necessarily surprise people if that happens. There's also the other way to do this too, where you could say, rent out Gagne. Alright, we're going to rent out Gagne, we're going to trade him, we're going to get the draft pick back, cool, we can save some money. But he's not throwing talent in the season, so maybe you lose Gagne because you can afford to lose Gagne. And you bring somebody else up, you bring somebody else in. Maybe you make a hockey deal. Maybe I think the town figures out a hockey deal. Right now, maybe a little bit more currently, but it's getting that something you can play right now as well. So, that kind of thing could happen. Then you look at the IR, we've got Brown, 20 games, 2 goals, 4 points, even on the 53 this summer. If he's going to go before the deadline, then you're likely going to move on. Riley Barber, 2 games, 2 points, even on the 53 this summer. Jacob Brown, that's played this year. 2 times through 2024, put Brand in the lineup. That might allow you to then trade him and then off trade guys. You don't lose anything. Put Brand back in the lineup. Right? So that's where things get interesting. Yeah, something that is inside of the board and over on that side. The initial season, 16 towards this. So it's 53 in summer. They bring him into Tampa again. He just gets healthy. There's that somebody else better. Somebody else trade. And Trey Spencer is just like 6 games this year. How promises. He's another 53 this summer. And I welcome him back to Vancouver. That's what I hope I'm saying this summer. Spencer is an underrated defenseman. So the interesting thing is they have stayed competitive. They've got a decent blue line here. And if Spencer were to get healthy, that might be easier than they can trade. So guys on the inside start to get healthy. To make those rentals available, and you're not sacrificing your friends. But you're also I've got Chronicles was played the protocol for the 33 in 2024. 46 games for this year, 4 goals, 20 assists, 24 points, 4 double. So it's a pretty good lineup. It's a pretty solid lineup. It's better than it was like years ago. But there's no work to be done. There are no players in this lineup that I think is going to become a playoff team. That is going to fight and the done. Okay, so I've been looking at teams to get closer to the trade deadline. Looking at teams below the trade deadline and available, what they have scored, where they're at, rebuild, if that's applicable. And today I want to talk about Buffalo. Yesterday I talked about Montreal, who are at the bottom of the standings. So I was like, yeah, we'll do another interview next. We'll talk about Buffalo. Buffalo is in the case. We traded Jack Eichel, kind of signaled this renewal of the rebuild that they're going through. If you watch Buffalo games, you would know that the arena is maybe half full a lot of the night. And it is definitely shown that the Buffalo market. Well, they're probably pretty tired of a team that doesn't win. The last time they were 500 was 2012-2013. So that's it. They were 1 game below 500, I think 4 or 5 years ago overall. But yeah, it's been a while. It's been a while since this was a winning team, and it's been a while since we saw a lot of hope. I think there's hope there, and I think we've seen it in this season. Now, for 2022, they have 3 first-round picks. For 2023, they have 2 second-round picks. I think they're going to have more draft picks this year. And saying that, this is going to have a lot of good young players coming up, right? And they have good young players on their roster as well. So really, for Buffalo, that core is likely there of players who can lead this team out of mediocrity and get them back in the hunt for a playoff spot. But if that patience is kind of worn out, and I get it. They haven't been in the playoff spot in over a decade. So, Dave Johnson leads the team in scoring. It's been a good story. 41 games, 14 goals, 15 assists, 30 points. On the right there, that's the total from last year. And last year for Thompson, 38 games, 8 goals, 6 assists, 14 points. So he's already blasted that. He's more than doubled that total. And Thompson really is their best forward right now. Skinner, their best goal scorer, which is what they're paying him for. They may not be completely earning that contract, but the 15 goals, 12 assists for 20 to 20 to 40 is much better than last year. In 53 games last year, 7 goals, 7 assists, 14 points. That's predicting he does that last year again. The bounce back was delayed until this year. And again, it's not where they'd like it to be, but if he ends up scoring 30 goals, I think they'll be happy. It's not 40, but 30 is the start. Dolly, 44 games, 7 goals, 21 to 28 points. The other defensemen are interesting that fans to be pretty brutal. I think learning hockey at the NHL level as a defenseman is really, really tough, and I think it takes a while. Dolly seems to be getting incrementally better each year. 56 games last year, 5 goals, 18 points. So offensively, better this year. And he may not be progressing as quickly as people thought, and maybe he doesn't end up taking to forget that he's offensively the guy that was prepared to be drafted. But either way, he's still a very good defenseman for them, and so he should be a top 2 defenseman for them in the future. And there's other defensemen that are on the way. Kyle and Fogo, 20 games, 8 goals, 15 assists, 24 points. Again, like Skinner, he's not going to make you forget the contract he signed and he did one off his spot. Much better than last year. 35 games last year, 2 goals, along with 6 assists. So, much better goals for Fogo and much better play. Then you get Olsen. Victor Olsen, he's actually fallen off for him. 36 games, 5 goals, 15 assists, 21 points. Last year, he played all 56 games, 13 goals, 19 assists, 13 points. So his goal scoring is off this year. I think the offense is still there, but for Buffalo, there may be reasons to the point where they say, maybe we'll see if there's a taker. Like maybe we're at that point of Olsen where that separation between player and Allen. We'll see, right? The deadline is going to be quite interesting with Olsen. It'll be a hockey thing, right? He's an RFA this summer, and we'll see if that has any impact on how long he's on board. Dylan Cousins, 42 games, 11 goals, 10 assists, 21 points. Up and down year for him, but better than last year. 41 games last year, 4 goals, 11 assists, 13 points. So again, another prospect is getting better. They got to the pace of the animal. Casey noticed that another one on the board. Yeah, more games. And it looked like he was progressing going into the last year. And then this year gets that back. I can't expect him to be a rental deadline. In his growth, there's very many opportunities he's had. I think the up towards the top of the scoring is probably with $2 million. He's had a lot of opportunities that just haven't gone in for him. And really with Buffalo, that's going to keep him off the team. Asplund, 43 games, 5 goals, 11 assists, 16 points. Right about where he was last year. 28 games last year, 7 goals, 4 assists, 11 points. Asplund's good, hard working forward. I don't think there's anything close to him. And so, yeah, I don't think there's anything going to be winning. I don't think that's Alex Tuck, part of the Jack Eichel trade, great season for him. 5 goals, 8 assists, 13 points, and fits right in. Alex Tuck is absolutely fit right in with Buffalo State with the right, and that's good news. Then you get to the goaltending issues. 6 different goaltending issues at this point. Craig Anderson 5-3 and 917 save percentage. Not bad for guys who were seen as over recently as a year ago. And so, yeah, played Anderson's in his 40s, being on the 80s. And the man, unfortunately, the Carson 460 is a final 48%. It's surprisingly good as well. Hauser, top of the city again. 948 save percentage. He's going down to Rochester. But Hauser very good. Lukanen right now is 5 and 2 is a 9.7%. Lukanen is really a future in that for them. And so I think that's the starter probably next year. Either the starter or maybe they bring somebody else in the underlying situation. But I would think Lukanen gets a good chance. Aaron Bell, 181 record, 8.3%. The save percentage stuff on better than seems to be played. But yeah, the 181 record is ugly. Malcolm Subban just be 0-2 on record. He's 71 save percentage after coming over Chicago, and he's done really good as well. So 6 different goaltenders. But this fits into while there's all this turnover going on in that for various reasons. And up front, there's been a lot of turnover as well. Their UFAs telling you there's a lot of turnover between now and the deadline, and you know that as well. Where there's about half the roster on this part of the game. So on the UFA list, you have Cody Eaton, Mark Jankowski, John Hayden, Robert Haig, Mark Patrick, you have Anderson, Tokarski, and the net.
I give it a Dawnstone that I found at the Digging Duo, and it evolves into a Gallade. We then move on.
Greetings, lovers. International superstar John Landon here with a very special gift for you. I'm going to let you sleep with me. Well, not sleep with me. I'm a happily married man, just regular sleep.
On the Holbury, where we find the chairman who keeps doing this thing where he forgets to put on his pants. And speaking of people who don't really wear pants, we next have to go up against the gym leader, Nessa. And since we got Gallade, let's just say that this gym battle wasn't that difficult either. The first thing I did was set up a sword stance. I then got hit by a horn attack from this Goldine, but after that, it was goodbye to Leaf Blade, goodbye to Leaf Blade. But then we got Dreadnought, and this thing actually ends up outspeeding, and it goes for a max strike, which I survived on 6 HP. I could have just subsequently taken out with a quad effective Leaf Blade, but that was way too close a call. We could have lost Gallade, and I definitely don't want to do that. Yeah, I guess you put up a little bit of a fight, Nessa, but give me that badge. We can then move on to Galavine, where we get our next encounter, which is also pretty bad wearing pants. I name my striking Deadpool, and it has Moxie, which is one of the best abilities in Fox. We then have to take on Beat once again, so Deadpool goes to work right away and takes out his whole team. We also have to go against Barney in our Dark types, which goes about as you expect it to go. Yeah, fighting beats dark. It's not rocket science, boys. After that, I do my final preparations for the next gym battle against Kabu, and I get everybody up to level 27, including Leola with my last few candies. And at that level, it ends up evolving into everybody's favorite Lucario. And this means we have to go up against Kabu, probably the most difficult gym leader in a hardcore outlook of Sword and Shield. And I initially lead off with Gallade just the same as I did against Nessa, as Kabu goes for a Will-O-Wisp, but I have the raw spirit to heal off the burn. I follow this up with a Sword Dance to boost my attack, and the thing is, I know I'm going to get Will-O-Wisp immediately the next turn, so my plan is to set up the +6, so the burn gets me down to +3. And it's pretty much exactly what happens. I get burned, I get my +6 with Sword Stances, and then I get hit by a Fire Spin, but fortunately, since I take 9 kills out with an Earthquake, that means that I can actually switch. Next up is Arcanine, and it gets us down pretty low with a Flame Wheel, but we can survive the burn even after we take it out with an Earthquake. And so now is where the problem comes in. We have to face Centiskorch versus the Bug type, which resists fighting, so I decided to swap out into Passimian. Not that Passimian can really do any better than anybody else on the team here, but it's at least not burned like Gallade. But since we swapped from Gallade, it wants to go for Max Flutterby, which fighting resists. For whatever reason, fighting and Bug resist each other. Have you ever slapped a Bug? I would argue that should be super effective. Anyway, here we get hit by a G-Max Burnout through Protect, which doesn't do that much damage, but it does trap us in a Fire Spin. Fortunately, we have Citrus to heal us up a bit, and I use a Volt Up the next turn since I'm faster, which means that I can take this hit a bit better since it's based off a physical move. This means that Centiskorch's G-Max turns are up, but we are still trapped in that Fire Spin, which means we can't switch out, and our health is getting really low. After hitting Centiskorch for about half damage with an Earthquake and expecting to get taken out, it goes for Coil, which means we get taken out no matter what because of that Fire Spin. Very unfortunate we have to get the second Death to run, so I send in Lucky to finish off Centiskorch with a Fake Out, and that is it for the third badge. All things considered, that could have got a lot worse, and I'm very happy we got through it with only one casualty. Moving towards Hammerlock, we have to go through the wild area once again, where we can find a Mod Shop. I name it home, and shortly thereafter I find a stumble that I name Rocket. Run, 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 run! Listen, I know we keep pretending for this, but thanks to Lucky Trousers, old chap. Now, before we can get the Storm side, I decided to find myself a Malucha, which is only a 2% encounter. It took me like half an hour to find this thing. But eventually I managed to find it and catch it, and I named it Falcon, which means we're ready to take on the next gym challenge against the inner fighting types. And since our hip on top really can't do that much to our Falcon, I decided to set up some sword stances and prepare for the win. What's going on? Hold on, guys. Let me just pick this up. Hey, this is actually perfect. You got Doc in your username. So what would you call what I'm about to do to phase team in medical terms?
Well, that's easy. The medical terminology is for these kinds of actions when you get absolutely destroyed. Or if you want to be more specific, we can call it total trainer failure with sudden onset team destruction.
Thanks for the clarification, Nick. Also, he's not wrong, but he got absolutely destroyed in this fight, and we get to claim our 4th gym badge. After the fight, I level up Pancham to level 32 while we have Scrappy in the team, which means it evolves into a Pandoro. After that, we can proceed to Vallejo, which happens to be my favorite city in all of Pokemon.
Hey, don't interrupt our conversation. Excuse me, who are you talking to? I swear the NPC interactions get weirder and weirder. What the?
Anyway, we got our next gym fight to worry about against local Andrew Fairy types, which you might think would be very difficult for fighting types, but we have Lucario. And not only that, during the Opal fight, you get these questions, and if you know the answer, you just get free boosts. So the first turn, I get set up with a nasty plot and an agility for free. I then go ahead and set up another 2 nasty plots, and from there, it's just a flash cannon and aura sphere massacre for a team. And personally, I think the twist on Opal's fight is really cool if you don't know the answers, but if you've played this game as many times as I have, it makes it super trivial no matter what type you use. And even though we've had a pretty easy time so far, this one did give me a run for my money later on. And as we move on forward through the Gala region, we have to fight Hopper once again. I fought him like 10 times, and we sweep him right on through. But the important thing about this fight is that we get Scraggy to a high enough level that it evolves into Scrap Kitty. Then as we continue our way to Circhester, we find one of my favorite new Galarian Pokemon after this run, and that is Phalanx. I captured her name as Ant-Man, and it has a neutral nature and a battle armor ability, which is so useful in these runs, since it can't get crit. We then arrive in the Winter Wonderland city of Circhester, and here I decide to go to a local pizzeria. Hey, kid, you looking for pizza? Dude, we've already established that I'm Swedish. I only eat meatballs. Hey, Italian meatballs. So what? Say we're down. And with that ambiguous spread out of the way, it's time for us to take on Cordy and his rock tides. He starts out with Barbarical, so I start out with Dr. Strange. He can outspeed and take down with a quad-effective replay right away. We then have to go up against Stone Juror, so I set up a sword stance to pound myself up a bit, and he goes for Wonder Room, which is very odd. It swaps everyone's defense and special defense, but since he has 20 special defense, that means he now has 20 physical defense, and we can just take him out in one hit. Yeah, Cordy, I'm not sure where you were going with that plan, but Shuckle is up next, and since it has the same defense and special defense, Wonder Room doesn't really matter, but we can still take it out in one hit with close combat. Then it's time for this G-Max Colossal, and this thing is both quad weak to water and grammar, so as long as you have either of those moves and you can outspeed, you're pretty much guaranteed this win. Get out of here, Cordy. Why are you still using fossil fuels? Get with the program. And so I get the 6th batch, about as easy as stealing candy from a kid. We can then move on to Route 9, where I find my next encounter of Graphlock that I named Mr. Fantastic. And we have to go up against Marty, who uses Dark Dice. Now, the thing about Marty is that her lead life card has Stall, so if you have anything that can take Dark moves, you can just set up on her and destroy her team. And this is generally a big flaw in the game design that you can exploit in these hardcore Nuzlocke, especially in the Emerald Elite form, but we're going to do the same to Piers. The thing about Piers is it's actually pretty difficult to set up against his Scrappy because it has Sand Attack, which can kind of ruin your plans. And after getting intimidated, it goes for Fake Out, which means I can outspeed the next turn and go for Encore, and now the Scrappy is locked out of playing the game. And so what my plan is going forward is to go for 3 Feather Dances to lower the Scrappy's attack as much as possible so that I can linger swap in Lucario. And as soon as I swap in Lucario, Scrappy's Encore actually ends, which means it's going to start going for Sand Attacks as I set up my nasty plots. And you might think that this would actually be a huge problem since we're not going to hit our moves, but we can get around this with a bit of cheese. The 3rd turn I go for a nasty plot, it goes for Brick Break, which actually does a fair amount of damage for being -6, but after that, I'm free to unleash an Onslaught of Aura Sphere, which is a move that can never miss, so those Sand Attacks did nothing, buddy. I don't do Encores, get it? Not songs, not moves, not Pokemon. Yeah, well, unfortunately for you, Piers, I do Encores, which means that you lose this fight, and I get the 7th gym badge. And it's from here on out that some of the battles were actually surprisingly tricky. We then head to Hammerlock, where we run into Leon, who's still dressing like this. Dude, you look like you robbed a thrift store blindfolded.
I was dead.
You certainly did, Andrew. Giving me a run for my money is Miss Galler. Speaking of which, we now go up against the former Miss Galler, the social media king Raihan. And so to start out this fight, I meet up with Iron Man and Bucky and go for a fake out on the Gigalith so that it can't body press Iron Man. Raihan then goes for a Breaking Swipe, which means both of my Pokemon are going to lose 1 stage of their attack, but it doesn't matter too much since I'm a special attacking Lucario. That being the case, I go for a nasty plot, and the next turn I lead up with a Protect. However, Raihan decides to target my Lucario and hits me with a Thunder Punch that doesn't do too much damage, and I can set up another nasty plot. Gigalith then decides to throw and goes for a Stealth Rock instead of Body Press, which I do have Chocolberry on Lucario for. I also decided to go with the Moon Relearner and relearn Helping Hand so that I can power up Lucario with Bucky. Then after I get my attack lowered again by Breaking Swipe, I can take out the Gigalith in 1 hit, which I definitely didn't need that Helping Hand for. Raihan then sends in his Sandaconda, so I decided to do the exact same thing and go for a Helping Hand, after which I get hit by a Thunder Punch and can take out Sandaconda